The wind bit at Marcus Jackson's fingertips as he pushed the mop across the polished floors of Sterling Enterprises. At 52, Marcus had seen his share of hard days, but the early morning shifts in the towering Chicago skyscraper felt colder than usual. His worn-out jacket barely shielded him from the draft sneaking through the lobby's glass doors, a constant reminder of the life he'd been scraping by since his wife Lila passed 3 years ago. Marcus hummed an old jazz tune, one Lila used to love, as he worked. His hands, calloused but steady, moved with the rhythm of someone who took pride in the smallest tasks. To the executives who breezed past him each morning, he was invisible, a black janitor in a faded uniform, just part of the building's machinery. But Marcus wasn't just anyone. Beneath the quiet exterior was a man who'd once run a small tech startup, a dream crushed by bad luck and worse timing. Now he cleaned floors to pay for his daughter Aisha's college tuition, swallowing his pride each time someone ignored his polite, "Good morning." Today, though, something felt different. A storm was brewing, and it wasn't just the snow piling up outside. Richard Hale, the regional manager, strode into the lobby at 7:45 a.m., his polished shoes clicking like a metronome. He was a man who thrived on control, his sharp suits and sharper tongue making him a feared figure at Sterling. To Richard, Marcus was less than invisible. He was a target. "Hey, boy," Richard sneered, tossing his coffee cup onto the floor Marcus had just cleaned. "Missed a spot." Marcus clenched his jaw, but said nothing, bending to pick up the cup. He'd learned long ago that responding to Richard's taunts only made things worse. The man's racism wasn't subtle. Snide comments about Marcus's kind or work ethic were daily rituals. But Marcus had Aisha to think about. Her engineering degree was his North Star, and no petty tyrant was going to dim that light. As Richard disappeared into the elevator, Marcus caught a glimpse of himself in the glass door, a tired man with graying hair and eyes that still burned with defiance. He didn't know it yet, but today would be the last time he'd mop these floors. Fate had a different plan, one that would turn Sterling Enterprises upside down. In the janitor's closet, Marcus took a moment to breathe, leaning against a shelf of cleaning supplies. His co-worker, Javier, a wiry man with a quick smile, poked his head in. "You okay, amigo? Hale's on one today." Javier had been at Sterling for a decade, and he and Marcus had bonded over their shared disdain for the manager's cruelty. They'd spent countless breaks dreaming up ways to stick it to the man, though it was always just talk. Today, though, Javier's eyes gleamed with something new. "Heard a rumor," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "Big meeting upstairs today. Board's coming in. Something about a shake-up." Marcus raised an eyebrow, but shrugged it off. Corporate games didn't concern him, or so he thought. He had no idea that a file with his name on it was sitting on the CEO's desk marked confidential. As Marcus returned to his work, a spark of curiosity flickered. He'd overheard enough elevator chatter to know Sterling was struggling, stock prices dipping, clients jumping ship. Could this shake-up mean anything for him? He pushed the thought away, but it lingered like the scent of bleach on his hands. By noon, the lobby was buzzing with suits, executives and board members arriving for the mysterious meeting. Marcus kept his head down, polishing a railing, when Richard's voice cut through the hum. "Jackson, you deaf? I said move that cart, now!" His tone was sharper than usual, laced with a nervous edge. Marcus noticed Richard's tie was crooked, his forehead slick with sweat despite the cold. Marcus moved the cart, but as he did, Richard leaned in close. "Don't get comfortable, old man. I'm cleaning house, starting with you." The threat wasn't new, but the venom in Richard's eyes was. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He'd heard rumors of layoffs, but Richard's words felt personal, like a promise. As Richard stormed off, Marcus caught the eye of Ms. Evelyn Carter, the company's HR director. She was a rare kind face at Sterling, always greeting Marcus by name. Today, though, her smile was tight, her glance fleeting. "Stay sharp, Marcus," she murmured before hurrying away. The knot in his stomach grew heavier. At 3 p.m., Marcus was called to HR. The walk to Evelyn's office felt like a march to the gallows. She sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable, and handed him an envelope. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she said softly. "Richard pushed this through. Budget cuts, he says." Inside was a termination notice, effective immediately. 30 years of service, reduced to a single sheet of paper. Marcus stared at the letter, his hands trembling. He thought of Aisha, of the tuition payment due next month, of Lila's voice telling him to keep fighting. "This ain't right," he said, his voice low but steady. Evelyn looked away, guilt in her eyes. "I know, but Richard's got the board's ear, for now." As Marcus left the office, his heart pounded with a mix of rage and despair. He didn't see the security guard waiting to escort him out or the curious glances from co-workers. All he saw was Aisha's face and the promise he'd made to give her a better life. That night, Marcus sat in his small apartment. The termination letter crumpled on the table. The city's lights flickered outside, but his world felt dark. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, a rare indulgence, and let his mind wander to the past. He'd built a tech company once, a small app that helped local businesses track inventory. It had been his pride until a shady investor pulled the rug out, leaving him bankrupt. Aisha called, her voice bright despite the late hour. "Dad, you okay? You sound off." Marcus forced a smile into his words, not wanting to worry her. "Just tired, baby girl. How's school?" They talked for an hour, her dreams of becoming an engineer filling the silence. Hanging up, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't done fighting. Not for her. Not for himself. He pulled out his old laptop, dusty from disuse, and opened a file labeled Sterling Proposal. It was a plan he'd drafted years ago, a way to streamline the company's failing logistics system. He'd never shown it to anyone, convinced no one would listen to a janitor. But tonight, something shifted. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. At 2 a.m., Marcus hit send on an email to Evelyn, attaching his proposal. The subject line read, "A way forward for Sterling." He didn't expect a reply. Not at this hour, not ever. But as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his phone buzzed. It was Evelyn. "Marcus, where did this come from? This is brilliant. Can you meet me tomorrow? 8 a.m., top floor." Marcus sat up, heart racing. The top floor was the executive suite, a place he'd only seen when cleaning after hours. Why would Evelyn want him there? Was this a trick? A final humiliation? He didn't know, but he felt a fire he hadn't felt in years. Sleep eluded him as he rehearsed what he'd say, his mind buzzing with possibilities. By dawn, he was dressed in his best suit, slightly outdated but clean, and heading to Sterling. The city felt alive, as if it knew something he didn't. Whatever was waiting on the top floor, Marcus was ready to face it. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt eternal. Marcus adjusted his tie, his reflection in the mirrored walls showing a man who looked both nervous and determined. When the doors opened, Evelyn was waiting, her eyes bright with something like excitement. "Follow me," she said, leading him to a boardroom where a dozen suits sat around a massive table. The board members glanced at Marcus, some with curiosity, others with confusion. Richard was there, too, his face twisting into a scowl. "What's he doing here?" he snapped, but Evelyn raised a hand. Marcus has something to say, and you'll want to hear it. Marcus took a deep breath, his proposal in hand. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he knew this was his shot. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady, "Sterling's dying. I've seen it from the ground up, and I know how to save it." Marcus laid out his plan with the precision of a man who'd thought it through 1,000 times. He spoke of inefficiencies in Sterling's supply chain, of outdated software costing millions, of missed opportunities with small businesses. His proposal wasn't just a fix, it was a revolution, using tech he'd developed in his startup days to cut costs and boost profits. The board listened, some nodding, others scribbling notes. Richard's face grew redder with each word, his fists clenched under the table. "This is absurd," he interrupted. "He's a janitor, not a strategist." But the board chair, a silver-haired woman named Margaret Voss, silenced him with a look. "Let him finish, Richard." When Marcus was done, the room was quiet. Margaret leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "How did you come up with this, Mr. Jackson?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I've been watching this company for 30 years. You learn a lot when no one's looking." As the board deliberated, Evelyn pulled Marcus aside. "I showed your proposal to Margaret last night," she whispered. "She's been looking for a way to oust Richard for months. He's been bleeding the company dry with bad deals and worse behavior. Your plan, it's the leverage we needed." Marcus blinked, processing her words. He'd sent the email on a whim, a last act of defiance. Now it was a lifeline. "Why me?" he asked. Evelyn smiled. "Because you see what they don't. And because I've read your file, Marcus. I know about your startup. You're no janitor. You're a leader." Before he could respond, Margaret called them back. "Mr. Jackson," she said, her voice carrying weight, "we have a proposal for you, but it's not what you expect." The room seemed to hold its breath, and Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. Margaret's words hit like a thunderbolt. "We want you to take over as CEO, effective immediately." Marcus froze, certain he'd misheard. The boardroom erupted in murmurs, with Richard slamming his fist on the table. "This is insanity! He's a nobody!" But Margaret's gaze never wavered. "He's the man who just saved this company from bankruptcy." She explained that the board had been searching for fresh leadership, someone untainted by the corporate games that had crippled Sterling. Marcus's proposal, combined with his decades of loyalty and Evelyn's glowing endorsement, made him the perfect choice. "You've been here longer than most of us," Margaret said. "You know this company's soul." Marcus's mind raced. CEO? Him? The man who'd been mopping floors yesterday? He thought of Aisha, of Lila, of every slight he'd endured. "I'm in," he said, his voice firm. The board applauded, but Richard's glare promised trouble. As the board adjourned, Richard stormed toward Marcus, his face a mask of fury. "You think you can waltz in here and steal my company?" he hissed. "I built this place." Marcus stood his ground, his years of restraint giving way to resolve. "You built nothing but resentment, Richard. This company deserves better." Security appeared, summoned by Evelyn, and Richard was escorted out, still shouting threats. Marcus watched him go, a weight lifting from his shoulders. But he knew this wasn't the end. Richard wasn't the type to go quietly, and Marcus had just stepped into a lion's den. Back in the boardroom, Margaret handed Marcus a contract. "Sign this, and you're officially CEO. But be warned, it's a war zone up here." Marcus nodded, pen in hand. He was ready for the fight. The next morning, Marcus walked into Sterling Enterprises not as a janitor, but as its CEO. The lobby felt different now. The glass doors reflecting a man in a tailored suit, his head held high. Employees whispered as he passed, some shocked, others smiling. Javier nearly dropped his mop, grinning ear to ear. "Boss man, you did it!" Marcus's first act was to call a company-wide meeting. Standing at the podium, he looked out at hundreds of faces, some skeptical, some hopeful. "I'm Marcus Jackson," he said, his voice echoing. "I've cleaned your floors, fixed your lights, and watched this company from the ground up. Today, we start fresh. No more fear, no more division. We build together." The room erupted in applause, but Marcus knew words alone wouldn't win them over. He had to prove himself, and fast. Somewhere out there, Richard was plotting his revenge. By noon, Marcus was buried in reports, learning the full scope of Sterling's troubles. The company was hemorrhaging money, with clients defecting and morale at an all-time low. His proposal could fix the logistics, but only if he could rally the team and avoid sabotage. He sensed eyes on him, executives loyal to Richard whispering in corners. Evelyn knocked on his office door, her face grim. "We've got a problem. Richard's been calling board members, claiming you're unfit. He's threatening to leak false documents about your past." Marcus's stomach dropped. His startup's collapse had left a paper trail, nothing illegal but easy to twist into a scandal. "We need to move fast," Evelyn said. "Show the board you're the real deal before Richard spins his lies." Marcus nodded, his mind already racing. He wasn't just fighting for his job now. He was fighting for his legacy. Marcus spent the afternoon meeting with department heads pitching his vision. Most were hesitant, but a few, like Sarah, the head of logistics, saw the potential. "Your system could save us millions," she said, her eyes lighting up. "But we need buy-in from the tech team. They're loyal to Richard." That night, Marcus worked late, refining his proposal into a presentation. He thought of Aisha, who'd texted him a simple, "Proud of you, Dad." Her faith fueled him. By morning, he had a plan, not just to save Sterling, but to expose Richard's corruption. He called Sarah and Javier into his office. "I need allies," he said. "Sarah, you know the numbers. Javier, you know the people. Help me make this work." They nodded, a small but fierce team ready to take on the corporate machine. At 2 a.m., Marcus received an anonymous email. Attached was a spreadsheet detailing kickbacks Richard had taken from suppliers, inflating costs and pocketing the difference. The sender's note was brief. "Check the accounts. He's been robbing you blind." Marcus's heart raced. This was the ammunition he needed. He forwarded the email to Evelyn and Margaret, along with a plan to audit the accounts. By dawn, forensic accountants were combing through Sterling's books, uncovering a trail of fraud that led straight to Richard. Marcus felt a surge of hope, but also dread. Exposing Richard would make enemies, powerful ones. As he prepared for the day's board meeting, Marcus glanced at a photo of Lila on his desk. "We're almost there, love," he whispered. The fight was far from over, but he was ready to swing. The boardroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Marcus stood at the head of the table, presenting the audit findings. "Richard Hale defrauded this company for years," he said, projecting the spreadsheet on the screen. Gasps rippled through the room as the numbers told a damning story. Millions siphoned off, hidden in shell companies. Richard, allowed to attend to defend himself, exploded. "This is a setup. Jackson's lying to save his own skin." But the evidence was ironclad, and the board's mood shifted. Margaret's voice cut through the chaos. "Mr. Hale, you're suspended pending investigation. Security, please." As Richard was led out, he shot Marcus a look of pure hatred. "This isn't over," he hissed. Marcus held his gaze, unflinching. He'd won this round, but the war was just beginning. With Richard gone, Marcus moved quickly to stabilize Sterling. He met with employees in small groups, listening to their fears and ideas. "You're not just workers," he told them. "You're the heart of this place." Slowly, skepticism turned to trust. Javier spread the word on the ground floor, while Sarah rallied the tech team to implement Marcus's system. But not everyone was on board. A group of executives, Richard's old allies, resisted every change, spreading rumors that Marcus was in over his head. He overheard one say, "A janitor running a company? This'll crash and burn." Marcus ignored the noise, but the doubt gnawed at him. Late that night, Aisha called. "Dad, I saw your speech online. People are talking about you. You're inspiring them." Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge of self-doubt. He had to keep going, for her, for Sterling, for himself. A week later, disaster struck. The new logistics system crashed during a critical client demo, costing Sterling a major contract. The tech team scrambled, but the damage was done. Whispers of sabotage spread, and Marcus's gut told him Richard's allies were behind it. He called Sarah and Javier for an emergency meeting. "We've got a mole," Marcus said, his voice low. Sarah nodded. "I found code in the system. Someone deliberately corrupted it." Javier leaned in. "I heard talk in the break room. One of Richard's guys, Tom, was bragging about teaching you a lesson." Marcus's blood boiled, but he stayed calm. "We need proof," he said, "and we need it fast." The three devised a trap, leaking a fake update to the system, one that would expose the saboteur if they struck again. The fake update went live, and Marcus watched the system like a hawk. Sure enough, at midnight, someone accessed the code from an executive's terminal. Sarah traced it to Tom's account, catching him red-handed. Marcus confronted him the next morning, flanked by security. "Why, Tom?" he asked, more sad than angry. Tom sneered. "You don't belong here. Richard was right about you." But his bravado crumbled when security escorted him out, his termination letter in hand. The board, informed of the sabotage, tightened security and backed Marcus fully. The tide was turning. Still, Marcus knew the client loss hurt. He spent the night crafting an apology and a new pitch, determined to win them back. "We don't give up," he told his team. "Not now, not ever." Marcus's new pitch was a gamble, a bold promise to deliver the logistics system in half the time, with double the efficiency. He poured everything into it, working with Sarah and the tech team around the clock. Employees rallied, inspired by his grit. Even the skeptics began to believe. When the client meeting came, Marcus walked in alone, his proposal polished and his confidence unshaken. "Sterling's not perfect," he said, "but we're honest, and we're fighting for you." The clients, impressed by his candor and vision, signed a new contract on the spot. Back at the office, the team cheered. Javier hugged Marcus, whispering, "You're the real deal, boss." For the first time, Marcus felt like he belonged in the CEO's chair. As Sterling's stock rose, so did Marcus's profile. News outlets ran stories about the janitor-turned-CEO, and social media buzzed with his story. But with fame came scrutiny. A blogger dug up Marcus's failed startup, spinning it as proof he was unstable. Richard's allies amplified the narrative, hoping to discredit him. Marcus faced the press head-on, holding a conference. "I've failed once," he admitted, his voice steady. "But failure taught me how to fight. And I'm fighting for Sterling now." The crowd applauded and the narrative shifted. People saw him not as a failure, but as a survivor. Aisha flew in that weekend, beaming with pride. "You're a legend, Dad," she said, hugging him. Marcus laughed, but his eyes were on the horizon. Richard was still out there, and he wasn't done. A month later, Richard resurfaced, filing a lawsuit against Sterling, claiming wrongful termination and defamation. He'd hired a top lawyer, and the case threatened to derail Marcus's progress. The board was nervous, but Marcus was calm. "Let him come," he told Evelyn. "We've got the truth on our side." He hired a legal team and dug deeper into Richard's dealings, uncovering more fraud. The evidence was overwhelming, but Richard's lawyer was relentless, painting Marcus as an opportunist. The media ate it up and public opinion wavered. Marcus refused to back down. He met with employees, reassuring them. "This is our company," he said. "We'll fight for it together." Their loyalty gave him strength, but the stress was mounting. He needed a win, and soon. The lawsuit went to trial, a media circus that packed the courtroom. Richard took the stand, spinning lies about Marcus's incompetence and his own dedication. But Marcus's team was ready. They presented the audit, the kickback spreadsheet, and even Tom's confession about the sabotage. Marcus testified last, his voice raw with emotion. "I'm not here for power," he said. "I'm here for the people who make this company, people like me who were invisible until someone believed in them." The jury listened, rapt, as he spoke of Aisha, Lila, and the dreams he'd buried to survive. When the verdict came, Richard was found liable, ordered to pay millions in damages. The courtroom cheered, and Marcus exhaled, the weight of months lifting. But he knew the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the company he was building. With the lawsuit behind them, Marcus rolled out his logistics system company-wide. It was a hit, cutting costs by 30% and winning back clients. Sterling's stock soared, and employees received bonuses for the first time in years. Marcus made sure Javier and Sarah got the biggest ones, thanking them publicly at a company gala. He also started a mentorship program, pairing young employees with veterans like himself. "Everyone deserves a chance," he told the crowd, his eyes on Aisha in the front row. She was graduating soon, and Marcus had a surprise, a job offer at Sterling where she'd work on his tech team. The gala ended with a toast. "To new beginnings," Marcus said, raising his glass. The room echoed his words, a family forged in the fire of adversity. Richard's empire crumbled. The lawsuit exposed his fraud to the world, and former allies distanced themselves. He faced criminal charges, his reputation in tatters. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Justice had spoken, and he was too busy building to look back. Still, he kept tabs on Richard, not out of spite, but caution. A private investigator reported that Richard had left Chicago, humiliated and broke. Marcus felt a pang of pity, but it passed. Some people reap what they sow. At Sterling, Marcus's leadership was unquestioned. The board extended his contract, and employees called him Mr. J with affection. He was no longer invisible. He was a beacon. Aisha joined Sterling's tech team, her energy lighting up the office. She and Marcus worked side by side, tweaking the logistics system and dreaming up new innovations. "You taught me to never give up," she told him one evening as they pored over code. Marcus smiled, his heart full. He also launched a community outreach program, funding STEM scholarships for kids like Aisha. "This is for Lila," he told the first recipients, his voice catching. The program went viral, with thousands sharing stories of Marcus's journey from janitor to CEO. Social media exploded with hashtags like #Marcus Jackson and #Sterling Rising. People posted about their own struggles, inspired by his story. Marcus read every comment, moved by the lives he was touching. One morning, a familiar face appeared in the lobby, Evelyn, who'd left Sterling to start her own firm. "I had to see it for myself," she said, hugging Marcus. "You've changed this place." They walked the halls, now vibrant with energy, and Evelyn shared her own news. She was consulting for Fortune 500 companies, inspired by Marcus's courage. As they talked, Marcus realized how far he'd come. The man who'd once felt invisible was now a leader, a father, a symbol. But he wasn't done. He had plans, bigger ones, to take Sterling global, to make it a force for good. Evelyn left with a promise to collaborate. "The world's watching, Marcus," she said. "Don't stop." He wouldn't. Not now, not ever. A year later, Sterling was unrecognizable. Profits were up, morale was high, and the company was named a top workplace. Marcus stood at the helm, his vision driving every decision. He'd hired more diverse leaders, ensuring no one felt invisible. The mentorship program had launched hundreds of careers, and Aisha was leading a new AI division. At a company-wide meeting, Marcus shared his next goal, a sustainability initiative to make Sterling carbon neutral. "We're not just a company," he said. "We're a movement." The applause was deafening, and Marcus felt Lila's presence, her smile guiding him. That night, he visited her grave, placing a Sterling badge beside her headstone. "We did it, love," he whispered. "We made it." Marcus's story went global when a documentary crew followed him for a day, capturing his journey from janitor to CEO. The film, titled Invisible No More, premiered to millions, trending across platforms. Viewers flooded social media with reactions, sharing how Marcus inspired them to chase their dreams, no matter the odds. Comments poured in. "This man is a legend! From mopping floors to running the show, Marcus Jackson is unstoppable." Shares skyrocketed, and Marcus's inbox overflowed with messages from people facing their own battles. He read each one, replying when he could, determined to pay forward the faith others had shown in him. As he stood in his office looking out at Chicago's skyline, Marcus knew this was just the beginning. He wasn't just a CEO, he was a spark, igniting hope in everyone who'd ever been counted out, and he was just getting started.